my calculations are correct, when this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious
It has begun!
Calm down, Doctor. Now is not the time for fear.
Time to misbehave.
Give them nothing, but take from them everything!
Program complete. Enter when ready.
Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions, the podcast where we talk the monthly events in Geek for Saturday, or basically covering the months of July and August, this podcast. I'm your host, Adam Mickelson, aka Drac. I hope everybody's having an awesome day or night when you're listening to this. That is awesome for you. And joining me tonight is my usual cavalcade of fellow geeks, fellow awesome YouTubers in general, and one that's just too busy with his master's degree to be able to bother with the YouTube community. After all, you are all beneath him. And by that, I mean, no, you're not. Brenton, speaking of, how are you?
Stressed, but it's fine.
Welcome to the master's program.
I mean, I'm enjoying it. It's just, there's just a lot to do. So that's all.
Okay. And so that's pretty much taken up a lot of your day, or a lot of your days, rather.
I mean, I'm pretty much working 2 jobs now. So.
And really quick, because I have had a few people ask this, but if you are not comfortable saying so, what is the degree that you're going for? Because apparently people forget.
Vocational rehabilitation counseling.
Okay, so that's the master's?
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. So that way you guys have it. And also joining us, for some reason, very angry, or at least his avatar is very angry at me, Alex the Shadow Blazer. Did you just wake up on the wrong side of the bed today? I'm sorry, in the death dimension that you live in?
Yeah, might have.
Okay. And what has caused this waking up on the wrong side of the bed in your death dimension?
So everybody knows I work a retail job, of course.
Yes.
But that's not it. Not just that. It's the fact that our store will be relocating. We're going to be moving to a whole new location, and slowly but surely we're going to start preparing to close down our current store. But for some reason, the last 2 months, they've still felt the need to send us fully loaded pallets essentially every day. And even though we've been pretty much backed up in our stock room for the last 6 months,
because somewhere in the chain of command, they obviously didn't get the memo.
Yeah, apparently not. But now at least seems like they finally got it, and now we're slowly but surely trying to just catch up. But now like I said, our stock room has probably been backed up with merchandise for a good 6 months now.
Something tells me that with what you're saying, it's going to be a very slow transition over to the new store.
Yeah, I mean, we're supposed to be ready within the month here by the close to the end of October, but I just don't know how we're gonna, empty out our store and in that time, because even the closeout sales that are supposed to happen aren't really that great of a closeout sales compared to what you might expect.
Well, I mean, here's the thing though, like the stress ultimately will be worth it, because I can at least attest, I know a little bit more than most. Where you're moving to is actually going to be closer to you. So at that point, it's going to be less gas. But the thing I have to giggle about is where you guys are moving to is where a Barnes & Noble used to be located. So I have to ask myself, did you guys steal all the Netcafe routers and the coffee machines?
I hope so. I really hope so.
Because I remember that Barnes & Noble was freaking loaded. Because every new thing that Barnes & Noble did, they embraced completely. Yeah. And in fact, we have a couple of good memories there. I think we actually all picked up books 6 or 7. I think it was 7 we all picked up there. So
maybe.
Now you get to work there, but it's going to be another place.
It's not a Barnes & Noble anymore, and I'm sad about that. There still are other Barnes & Noble relatively close, but
yes.
Which is kind of funny though, because the store where we currently are, before we close it, like I said, we actually way back when took over. It used to be a Borders, so yet again we're taking over a bookstore,
which is sad to me, because I'm the old fart here, so I can remember the olden days of Walden Books and Borders, and the fact that they were just plain bookstores. And when you walked in there, there was the smell of fresh books in there. I don't know how to explain it other than fresh books. And I kind of miss that because my brother used to work at that Walden Books, and so we would always go in there and see if maybe we could get a discount on a new paperback or something. And so like having a Barnes and Noble close, yeah, it still kind of affects things, but it's not like Barnes and Noble is not the same as Walden or Borders were back in the day. So that's sad overall. As for me, I am actually getting ready for the most dreaded time of the year for an Amazon driver, which is, we call it peak season, but it is basically the holiday season. And we start prepping as early as September because we have to get all of our vans ready to go, like all their maintenance taken care of before the beginning of November. Because if we try and do it in the middle of peak season, it will not work. So at that point, like, we literally would probably lose out on a route if a van gets grounded. And by grounded, I mean you can't drive it. There's something safety-wise that's wrong with it that you can't drive it. So that being said, we've been into overdrive, which has sucked because a couple of weeks ago I injured my knee. And so I've had to do some physical therapy to rehab that. And now I get to return to regular routes tomorrow on my sore knee. So that'll be fun. But let's not talk about the negatives here. Let's start things off the way that people have actually appreciated that we start things off in the last podcast. What have we been playing and what have we been watching? So for those who are joining us brand speaking new, this is where we talk about something in the last couple of months that we've been playing, reading, watching, anything like that, and that we wish to highlight it, whether it be positive or negative. So at that point, I know I just said for a fresh positive look, but it's possible that we could get something like that. And technically, we have one for 2 months here because I'm going to preface this really quick. July and August didn't really have a whole lot going on because after let's call it the E3 season, because it wasn't E3, it was a bunch of different directs and online presentations, things kind of just slowed down. And so at that point, everybody was just kind of absorbing all of the big announcements that had happened. Plus, you had a Comic-Con in between there, so everybody was absorbing all of that. And so now we're coming here to basically try to sum up the last 2 months, because one story has carried on through both of those months, and the others are somewhat related. But first of all, because of the 2 months, I am also going to say, if you want to add a second one, you are more than welcome to, but it is totally up to you. And actually, let's start with Alex. What have you been playing? What have you been watching that you want to talk about?
Okay, well, in terms of playing, not too much, but I did, during our vacation, I did actually kind of bust through Miles Morales. Pretty easy because it's a shorter
He
game
actually
anyway.
did. It was very difficult to get him out of his room.
Yeah, it was fun. I really had fun with it. So yeah, I was playing a lot of Miles Morales.
Is it shorter?
Spider-Man.
Like, everybody's been telling
shorter.
me it's way shorter than the main storyline of 2018.
It definitely is shorter,
Okay.
especially if all you do is focus on just the main story quest. I did a lot of the side stuff too, so but
that makes sense though, because it was originally supposed to be a story DLC for 2018.
It makes sense, and it feels like it's not bad because of that. I'm just saying you could definitely tell it was probably meant more as a DLC, but
Yeah.
as it is, it's been fun. It's been a good game. I've enjoyed it, and yeah,
Have you
I
beaten
stretched
it?
it out because I did a lot. Yeah,
Okay.
actually, no, I haven't beaten it yet, so I haven't finished the main story. But because I've been doing a lot of the side content as well, I do a lot of the side questing and like repeating certain quests to maybe try up my score, trying to go for more tech
Gotcha.
upgrades, stuff like that.
I remember this with 2018 for you too. You wanted to get into everything. Although I'm not sure if you got into the DLC, did you?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, because it might actually be worth it, but I don't know. You might have to deal with the weird digital copy of Spider-Man 2018 now that you have a PS5. The one that doesn't have Yuri Lowenthal as Peter Parker.
He's still the voice. It just his likeness is no longer used.
Yeah, his likeness is no longer used. It's what, similar to Tom Holland?
It does. It's definitely trying to emulate Tom Holland a
Yeah.
little bit.
So there you go. Okay, so that's primarily what you've been doing. Did you want to add
Mhm.
a second one in there?
Yeah. Well, this one isn't so much a plane as it's a project I've been working on. Everybody probably knows these last several years I've become increasingly into the world of visual novels and gotten really into them is because I got into Steam like 5 years ago. So I decided, well, why not build my own? And so, pretty much since the time we got back from our trip, I've been learning the ins and outs of working with RenPy, which is a Python based game engine that's free to use and pretty intuitive. But I've had to look up a lot of different tutorials how to use it and how to make certain functions happen. So, yeah, that's what I've been doing these last couple months here is just starting to slowly, surely build my own visual novel.
All right. Well, first of all, congratulations on that. Second, I'm going to send Rising Sun your way so that you can appropriately make a KFC dating simulator. Because he still hasn't provided that yet. So at that point, maybe he could teach you how to do it.
Maybe he could, yeah.
I'm giving him crap because he did do that Taco Bell dating sim. Because I
But
told him to.
well, there already is a KFC dating sim. It's the Colonel
Okay, so
Sanders
then at
one.
that point, we'll fit. Maybe we'll do Jack in the Box because he really wanted us to try out Jack in the Box for the longest time.
Jack
So
in the Box, Burger King, Burger Queen. There we go.
there. We'll do the Burger King dating sim. There you go. That's what we should do. The Burger King must find a creepy Burger Queen. That's exactly what we'll do. Okay, Brinton, what have you been playing and watching for the last 2 months?
Um. ooh. well,
Funniest thing, school.
considering that school started in between the last 2 months, I finished Tears of the Kingdom,
Okay,
and that boss fight was brutal.
okay.
I started Final Fantasy 16.
Oh, so Final
How
Fantasy Game of Thrones edition.
however, I didn't get too far into it before school started, and when I've needed a break from reading, listening to a lecture, writing an assignment, I've been playing the Teal Mask for Pokemon Violet.
That's the new DLC campaign that they did, right?
Yeah, part one of
Oh,
the
by the
hidden.
way, did you get the free Mew? Because I told Alex how to get it. Did you get it?
Yep, I got
Okay.
my Mew.
All right, just making
I,
sure.
did,
Because I
I
think
didn't
that
get
offer
mine.
ended.
Yeah, unfortunately,
It
I didn't
was
get mine. I couldn't figure out how to get it.
Oh.
it was a very quick promotion. If you didn't know how to get it, then you're SOL,
I tried to
unfortunately.
Yeah.
explain it to him, but I guess I left things out.
It's
Sorry,
okay.
Alex, that
It's all
sucks.
right. Well, it happens, you know. I appreciate you tipping me off in the first place, Adam. But yeah,
Yeah.
I went to try following your steps, but for whatever reason, I couldn't get it to work for me.
Okay.
So
Well, they'll probably bring it back because there will be demand.
yeah, I'm sure
So.
they'll have another really fun promotional Fremon giveaway like they. Because I remember them doing a lot of that during like I want to say it was X and Y that they did so many of those awesome like special Pokemon giveaways.
So, question about the teal mask because I've tried to have it explained to me. Is it continuing the story of Scarlet and Violet, or is it like a whole new branch storyline?
It's a branched storyline,
Okay.
so as long as you initiate the treasure hunt, so like the main concept of the game, um, and have the DLC pre-purchased, or I guess at this point purchased,
Right.
the game will automatically, regardless of what level or how many, like the level of your Pokemon or how many badges you have, it will allow you to initiate the teal mask,
Okay.
and you can go to the land of Kitakami, and everything is level scaled.
Is it
So
by chance teasing any like new Pokemon projects? Somebody was saying like on Reddit that it was teasing the next Legends title or something like that.
I haven't gotten far enough in the story of the teal
Okay.
mask to deny or confirm that. What it is doing is like it's world building way more than I've ever seen in a Pokemon game.
Okay. And it's probably because they want to show like this Pokemon world is way bigger than anybody imagines.
Yeah, like the concept of terrestrialization is much more complex than the story is letting on.
Okay.
And it's like more is to be revealed in the Indigo Disc, from my understanding. However, the Indigo Disc is a continuation of what happens in the Teal Mask, from what I've understood.
Okay,
Because there's
and
been a
that's
lot
the
of
next one.
yeah,
Okay.
there's been a lot of leaks for the Indigo Disc. So
Leaks happen, as far as I'm concerned, in the video game industry. Well,
yeah,
I'm glad that you're
there's
enjoying it, because like DLC, I don't want to say DLC's been considered bad for Pokemon, but I think this is the first time, because DLC is usually just like new Pokemon or new variations, but this is, I think, the first time they've done a story extension in a gen game, if I'm
I
right.
will say that just what I've played so far, it I'm enjoying it more than the DLC from Sword and Shield.
Nice. Okay. I'm happy to hear that, at least, because as long as they continue to get better, then it just benefits us, the players.
Additionally, the 2.0 patch fixed the base game significantly. The
Yeah.
draw distance and frame rate are so much better now.
I'd heard that, because they thought that they had worked out every single design flaw within the Switch, and when that was in their test environment, but when they got it out
Mhm.
to retail, it was not behaving the way it should have. So I know that they had to do a day one patch for it, and then they even had to schedule a month after to do even more fixes, to that way it was properly utilizing the hardware resources.
Yeah, exactly. And I appreciated the fact that they ignored all the people who forcibly broke the game to try and sell that Sword and Shield were broken pieces of crap.
Yeah.
And I sat there and I was like, there is a significant difference. And I'm not a programmer, but I would like to think that it's pretty like black and white to tell when a game is properly glitching
Yes.
and when somebody is forcibly destroying the
and
code.
and everything I've heard about any of the Pokemon DLC, nothing is in comparison to, say, what Bethesda does. And to me, Bethesda games at release are the epitome of the game that's not finished.
Yeah. Will will I say that? Will I say that? How do I want to put this? I think I like that Pokemon is going into more of an open world direction. I really do, because people just like play more open world games, and it makes sense for Pokemon, especially since it's being put on a proper on a console now. However, base game, like it's just a really big world that's still fairly empty, with not really a whole lot to do besides gyms, um,
Excuse me.
boss battles, and just exploration. And I think if they added in things like side quests and yeah, just like side quests, it could
Yeah.
have made exploring and completing the Pokedex a little bit more enticing, because that's kind of what they softly did in the Teal Mask. And I appreciate that they did that, because now
Didn't
what
the
I'm
Teal Mask also include a? Maybe you already said this and I just missed it, but didn't
you're
it
good.
include a Pokedex expansion?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
where I was actually getting at.
Okay.
So, there's like this whole side quest with like the descendant of a character from Legends Arceus, and you cannot initiate their side quest until the Kitakami Pokedex has at least 150 caught Pokemon.
There you
And I
go.
was like, oh, okay, well, how many, between what I caught in Paldea, what does my Kitakami Pokedex look like? I had 20 Pokemon. So
Well, and to me, that also says a lot for the developers, because I remember when Sword and Shield came out, so many people were mad because the Pokedex was shortened. And they don't realize the design limitations were ultimately the reasons that the Pokedex got shortened the way it did.
Right.
The fact that they actually are adding it into it and also saying this is a requirement, you have to do this in order to further the story, really invalidates a lot of the arguments that were made around Sword and Shield, which is like, oh, the Pokedex doesn't matter to the Pokemon Company or to Game Freak. That obviously is bullcrap if they are literally tying story stuff behind it.
And just to clarify, Adam, this is a side story, so you
Mhm.
can play the main story of the Teal Mask without doing the 100, like having at least 150
Yeah.
Pokemon caught in Kitakami. But if you want to complete the Pokedex for that area, like, you have to do the side quest.
Mhm.
So here I am now, and I'm like, oh, well, this actually motivates me to catch all 200 Pokemon in this Pokedex.
Right.
Like, and I already know what the reward is for doing so, and I'm highly motivated to do it.
Mhm.
I wish that those elements were present in the base game. It would have made my exploration way more meaningful, I guess you could say, because I just felt like I was just going from one place to another, kind of just like, well, I know what Pokemon I want. This is where I can find them. Go to that area. Got it. Rinse
Right.
and repeat. So I never it wasn't it didn't feel like Tears of the Kingdom or Xenoblade where, oh, what's over there? Oh, I want to see what's going on over here. And you
Mhm.
find and you encounter oddities and strange occurrences and side quests
But it
along the
also
way.
sounds like it's doing what a DLC expansion should do, which is trying to get you to engage not just with one aspect of the content, but all of it all together. And
Yeah, yeah.
that's a good DLC is what I'm basically saying.
Yeah. Teal Mask is super, super fun. I'm really excited to see what the Indigo Disc is going to bring. And
Okay.
I've heard rumors that the release date has been delayed into spring 2024, but Nintendo's main website still say winter 2023. So
We'll see, because I have heard, I cannot confirm this, but there is supposedly going to be a direct around October or November, and we'll be talking about that later on in this podcast. But supposedly we are going to get another direct that will clarify a couple of things that were expected to be out by 2023, but now are looking to be 2024 releases. Plus, again, we'll talk about that in a minute. But so you have Pokemon the Teal Mask, but did you have a second one that you wanted to throw in there, or was it just textbooks outside of that?
That's all I've been doing.
That's kind of what I thought. So for me, it's actually been fairly busy just because I've gotten injured, and we've also been building up towards peak, and so I've been helping out as much as I can with that. Plus, the other thing too is that Amazon, thankfully, is looking to do a pay increase for us, so that's going to create a bunch of headaches for our payroll people. So we're trying to help them too. So we had that, but I was actually able to do two major things. One was I know that this is going to be boring to some people, but I went back into World of Warcraft. Here's why. So Dragonflight just recently released a pre-patch to their 10.2 patch, which is basically going to be their level up catch-up mechanic for the expansion. They call it Dream Surges. So I basically went back into WoW because I wanted to try out the Dream Surge system and see if they had worked it out properly. I mean, I've bounced back and forth into Dragonflight here and there and have been pleasantly surprised by a lot of the things that they're doing. In fact, I would argue that the current WoW team needs to go work on Diablo games because they're doing Diablo games better than the Diablo team. Now, of course, I'm saying that and I haven't played D4 yet, so don't jump down my throat. But basically, I've been playing a lot of that, and I've actually been pleasantly surprised the leveling mechanic actually does work out pretty well. It would actually be very similar to, Brinton would remember this, the Legion invasions that happened back in Legion, where it basically isolates a zone, and this zone is being attacked, for lack of a better word. And then all of the associated world quests and everything like that in that region are now tied to it. And so you get a currency called Dream Search Coalescence, which you can use to buy catch-up gear for your alts, as well as when you finish up the weekly quest for it, you get a Dream Search Chrysalis, which would give you access to even better gear that would actually get you into the raid scene a whole lot quicker. So I'm actually pleasantly surprised by a lot of that. If I had a complaint with it, it's that if Brinton remembers, those Legion invasions were giving you a ton of XP. When you did those on alts, they would skyrocket you enough to the point where you didn't need to do the original Legion questing. You could just do that. And they didn't fix it for for BFA or Shadowlands. They did it like halfway into it. They did a nerf, but you could actually level your alts pretty well with the Legion invasions. And so unfortunately the Dream Surges are not up to those numbers, but it is fairly engaging enough. So I will give them some major props. And part of the reason I'm also doing this is because the next big patch has already announced that it will be going into one of my favorite parts of the Warcraft lore, which is the Emerald Dream. And so at that point, we will have a raid there. And so the Dream Search stuff is also themed into that. And so I wanted to make sure that everything was going okay. Plus, if people don't know this, I'm actually working on a video series called Questing with Drac, where we're going to be taking on specific quest lines of various games, and we're going to rate them. We're going to talk about what they did right and what they did wrong. And one of the things I'm going to be starting off with this, because I've gotten so many people asking, is the Dragonflight story. So I've also been working on that. But the second thing I've been working on, I blame solely on Alex and Brinton because of our discussions about Yu-Gi-Oh! So I finally decided to re-download Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, and I have put way more hours into this than I want to admit.
That's great.
And the main thing here's the thing, I have not been dueling. I've been dueling a little bit here and there, but the main thing that I've actually been doing is messing around with the crafting system, because somebody gave me a link to a website that basically has an entire database of decks that you can make that either symbolize a character or symbolize a particular strategy, or taking actual strategies that were in the original trading card game back in the day, and they found ways to be able to make them work in modern day Yu-Gi-Oh! So I've actually been building a lot of decks just to have, build like a Maximilian Pegasus deck, or to build a Jaden Yuki deck, or to, build all of these little ones. They even have some for like they have an actual deck for Mokuba Kaiba. Like the character that's deck got destroyed in like 2 turns. They have a full deck for Mokuba. And that's the stuff that I've been messing around with, is like, you have a Mokuba deck. I want to try that out. And so I've made them, and because of that, that actually requires the crafting point system and basically crafting a lot of those cards. So that's primarily what I've been doing, is buying packs, and then like I'll go out and duel a little bit, but then I'll buy some packs and try to make another deck. So it's actually been really fun being able to mess around with that. And Master Duel is basically all of the TCG together, so you have to play it appropriately, but a lot of the stuff I've been doing is just casually dueling, and that's been a lot of fun, actually. So like for example, the one I've got right now is like a dragon deck that I really love, that basically if Kaiba didn't have like other warriors in his deck, he probably would have this. It's like totally based in dragons. And the only difference with it is that the Blue Eyes is not the big bad boss of the deck. It is instead I think it's the Tyrant Winged Dragon? I can't remember. I don't have the boss, so I just swapped it out for Blue Eyes because I had it. So at that point, that's pretty much what I've been doing. I've been enjoying the heck out of it for the little minor details, mainly because at the end of the day, all I've wanted to do is just decompress. and as the Game Grumps put it, decompose. And I just wanted to not have to worry about anything and just do something very minor. And so I've been doing a little bit of that, and also a little bit of Pokemon Puzzle League. For all the people that don't know that, I am kind of addicted to Puzzle League. It's very helpful. Like, it does what Tetris can't do for me now. Ultimately is what it does. But that's pretty much what I've been playing, and I haven't really been watching anything for the reasons that I mentioned. But let's get into what happened in August and July. Because we do have some stories to get to, you know, we're not just doing a bunch of a casual stuff, but we have to get to the story that is been part of both of those months. The original reason, technically, this started in June. We didn't cover it then because a lot of stuff wasn't set in stone yet. Specifically, that one part of this hadn't actually begun yet, and also repercussions hadn't been felt yet. But now we can talk about it. Yes, we are going to talk about the WGA SAG-AFTRA strike that is going on. So for those who don't know, 95% of Hollywood, roughly, originally it was the 95% of the writing staff of Hollywood, and now I think the numbers now are just roughly 90% of all of Hollywood, because all of the prominent actors have also joined in for support and whatnot. And they have all walked out on Hollywood. Well, why have they done that? Well, we've covered quite a bit of this, actually, but Hollywood's been kind of a dickbag over the last decade. I'm right on the time frame, right? Or do I need to add decades to that?
Well, I mean,
decades. I think so.
Okay, decades.
Shock, you know?
Basically, for those who don't know, Hollywood will try, like Hollywood, specifically the people that write the contracts, will try to get whatever they can out of it. And so actors, voice actors, stuntmen, producers, they all have to basically read those contracts to make sure that they're not getting bent over and screwed. Well, now that the industry is changing quite a bit, they don't need to look into the contract because they're all being bent over and screwed. There's no easy way to say that, because they basically, mainstream Hollywood, and by that I mean the studio system, is still trying to operate as if it is the early 2000s to 1990s. Even earlier than that in some cases. And frankly, we have a bunch of new ways of media that haven't really been addressed. Namely, streaming media has not been addressed whatsoever in all of this, at least properly addressed, where it's actually being properly figured out and paid for. And then we also have little things like voice effects and general visual effects, where those people, as we've been pointing out in previous podcasts, are getting bent over really hard and basically forced to work atrocious hours, even when they're independent, in order to be able to maintain their contacts, their networking, and a good reputation with the studios. So, the one thing that I want people to point out is, obviously, when I say strike, what is the first thing that comes up to people's minds? What are the demands? There's a lot, but I'm going to try to summarize these to try and cover all of it as best as I can, because everything pretty much falls into these categories. And there are three of them. First of all, minimum rate increases. This is actually what started with the writer's strike, but now SAG-AFTRA is also addressing this with some of their actors' pays as well. So, minimum rate increases. Residual increases. What is this? Alex, do you want to explain what a residual is for people?
Yes.
So I can drink water.
Yes. So back in the old days, long before the days of streaming, anytime a TV show, for example, would be in syndication in reruns, an actor would get residuals for that, not just for TV shows, movies too. So anytime a movie got played on TV or a TV show was in syndication and reruns, basically an actor would get residuals. Think of it like royalties. Like, musicians get royalties for their music every time their song is played on the radio or a CD is purchased or a record label, or record vinyl, whatever.
And especially in
So it-
TV and stuff like that, it would also,
Mhm.
some of these contracts would account for said contracts being in fault. So, like, you know, if we're going to air Full House, then we do actually have to pay these residual royalties to Bob Saget, so the amount should reflect that.
Yes, so that would go for actors and for writers and
Mhm.
I assume producers, but I don't actually know how the Producers Guild works.
It just
in this
depends on
end,
which
but
producer and director is savvy enough.
yeah, for sure. So that's generally how a lot of actors and writers continue to make money and, well, live as they keep going from gig to gig. So, unfortunately, the digital age of streaming, well, hasn't really taken an account for residuals because when it's streaming, it's just one and done. There's no special extra contracts made for
Well, there
streaming.
there are no contracts for streaming at all.
Exactly. And that's another one of the big reasons why the Writers Guild has decided to walk out because they can't seem to reach a deal about how to properly address this with the specifically the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. That's who they are striking against on top of the other studios.
Well, not only that, but also because streaming is a whole new category. And it's weird to be able to say that, but it is entirely a whole new category, kind of like how cable was with with legit TV. In the fact that it works differently. And they've actually, we've been seeing a lot of problems over the last 5 to 10 years where, for example, like we said, you know, certain actors get certain royalties from this particular series that they worked on. And the streaming services haven't really been accommodating to that because they've basically been playing like we're a whole new platform, so we don't need to. And that's obviously rubbed a lot of directors, actors, producers, and studios the wrong way. So that plays into it. But yeah, so we have those two. Any other residuals that you want to add in?
Another big one is if we're going to go down the agreements, the demands rather, this is also due to AI. Also, the fact, let's get back on the residuals real quick.
Yeah, we'll get to AI in a minute.
Yeah, another thing about this is the size of writers' rooms and the length of writers being brought onto shows. Of course, in a traditional broadcast TV show, say a TV show would have a writers' room, but basically ran by the showrunner. And for the time of that show's run, production, whatever, they would have the group of writers to sit around, talk, discuss plot lines, and revise and work scripts together, workshop everything. Well, that hasn't really been a thing in the world of streaming, where a writer might be brought on for like maybe a couple weeks and will be told to write out a script real fast, and that'll be that. And then they'll be done, but of course, what that means you basically only get paid for a much, much shorter time, which probably isn't going to be a lot, especially if you're a starting up writer.
Well, and let's point this out for just a second, because this is addressing all of the streaming problems, because the streaming industry works differently. Hollywood has basically addressed it as everything has to happen at light speed times 12. And so at that point, that's why you don't have writers' rooms for series like I don't want to use Disney Plus and whatnot, even though they do it, but something like Jack Reacher. You would only have like maybe 1 or 2 writers that work on that particular episode, and they are paid for that particular episode. They are not just kept on to maintain continuity throughout the series at large. In fact, a lot of the problems with continuity that people have with, say, the Disney Plus Marvel series or the Disney Plus Star Wars series is because this is in effect. So continuity, what's that?
Exactly. That's a big issue. Like I said, it's gone from a long-term...
It's basically Hollywood assuming that every writer talks to each other all the time, which isn't true.
So instead of like being on a show for a matter of months to maybe a couple of years even, you're pretty much in and out in a couple of weeks if that. It just depends a lot on the show for a streaming show anyway.
Yep. And also because and going back to the minimum rate stuff, because things are done so fast, everything is cut down to assume a good enough budget to be able to do this. But in reality, it's not paying for a lot of the stuff that is necessary to be able to make these work, but also it's not addressing certain royalties, residuals, also demands that certain studios have on that particular set. So, like, it doesn't even follow Disney's kind of filming standards because it has to be just so fast. Because they have to get it up on the streaming service. It has to be there. People are excited for it. They'll go watch it. And also, because of this speed, the other problem is you may not earn what you think you're going to earn from the streaming market as well. So all of that needs to be kept into account. And now we can get into the third portion, which is protections relating to the use of artificial intelligence. What does this mean? Now, we've addressed some of the issues that are being addressed here, where, say, we're going to take an entire actor's likeness and put it into a film. And funniest thing, some of those contracts are actually, again, trying to bend the estate of said person over in some of those cases. Not the one that I'm hinting at, but there are others where this is happening. Funniest thing how the Hollywood system wants to just bend people over. It's almost like they do that in real life too. Oh, wait, did I say that out loud? This is also in relation, not just to likenesses, but also vocal likeness, which is just basically being able to sound like a person. And for those who don't understand this, actors, the whole basis of their profession is to, I've said this to numerous people, actors are prostitutes. And I'm not meaning that in the sense that they're like they're selling themselves for sex or whatever. They might be. I don't know. But
They probably are at this point.
But the essence here is that they have to sell themselves. And when it's yourself as a product, you need to make sure for the network that you work in that you are as PC savvy as you are, or you don't curse enough, or you use the F-bomb relentlessly, or whatnot. You have to maintain this argument. And now you have people who are so good with AI, they can mimic entire voices, making said voice say things that maybe isn't cool with that studio or that particular voice acting troupe or whatnot. And so then at that point, you can lose work for something you didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
The same can be said of a physical likeness as well, by the way. But the other thing in regards, how does this connect to the writers? Well, remember how I said Hollywood likes to skimp and save however they possibly can? Well, some of them have adopted the premise of, well, why do we need writers when we have apps like ChatGPT? And we don't have to pay an AI. An AI's not a person. So why should we hire a person to do the writing that an artificial intelligence can do for us? Speaking of, a lot of the problems that I'm having with modern day Hollywood writing is because you're putting an AI that is not properly programmed in charge. And by properly programmed, I mean it's still, as for an artificial intelligence, it's pretty dumb. You need to wise it up. You need to make it smarter. And a lot of people, in particular Hollywood, do not understand that you have to do this. So that being said, those are the three major problems that are the major demands that are being addressed by the Writers Guild of America as well as SAG-AFTRA. Screen Actors Guild. I'm not doing AFTRA. But overall, this has been pretty much the ripple effect throughout the last couple of months. We've seen many different reactions to it. Obviously, on the social media platforms, you will have your people, your extremes attached to either side of that argument. And to them, I say, the world is a lot grayer than you think it is. Because there are things that, while I think are a good thing to do, I just don't trust Hollywood to do it right. So at that point, like, I can get where people are on their particular sides. But then we've also had issues where, say, people have to earn a living. And so they try to start up a show, And then the WGA and SAG-AFTRA people are immediately yelling at them on social media. The best example that I can think of was recently with Drew Barrymore. I believe she was producing a series, and she had a lot of money resting on it and needed to get it up and running because, you know, she's got a lot of money riding on it, and immediately was shouted down by her fellow SAG-AFTRA people for how evil she was for trying to earn a living, which I have a problem with. I get that people want to stand in solidarity in strikes, but there are things like food that you have to buy. And sometimes when we're striking, we all can't get a job at the grocery store, is what I'm saying. Sorry, have I talked over you guys?
No.
No,
So-
you're summarizing things really, really well, because
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I've only like partially have followed this, so it's nice to be brought up to speed.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I'm not that. It's funniest thing. I'm actually not really all that invested in these strikes, primarily because I do think that it's a lot of basically people eating each other. But also the fact that I just don't think Hollywood is going to do these in the satisfactory manner that everybody else thinks they're going to. A lot of people don't realize that a lot of these studios are hurting for cash because they either haven't adapted to the times or they've adapted to the times and it hasn't worked out very well for them. So I don't see Hollywood as being able to do a lot of this stuff. I will also admit there's a little bit of hypocrisy in a lot of this, because I remember a lot of said actors who now have a problem with artificial intelligence, where you can find quotes from them 5 years ago praising artificial intelligence and how great it was going to be for the industry. How you feeling about it now, numbnuts?
Okay,
Adam,
come-
people change, dude.
calm
Like,
down a
come
bit
on.
there,
I
Adam.
know.
Well, especially if we, one, I don't even know what quote you're talking about, but two, okay, let's say about 5 or so years ago, when AI was barely anything, like, compared to now, where it's rapidly, like, in advance to the point where, yes, we can replicate actors' voices
You're right.
and likenesses, or yes, ChatGPT can write a script, and all you have to do is say, bring in a screenwriter to just polish it up. That now there's a little more reason to be
Which, by the way, you're
concerned.
paying the writer even less, because all they're doing is correcting it.
Yeah, exactly. You're basically hiring a glorified, like, proofreader and editor
Yes.
instead of somebody to actually craft you the story. So
Mhm.
it's one thing to have said, 5 or 10 years ago, look at AI and say, wow, this could really do some interesting things and maybe bridge a gap of some areas of technology or whatever, and look at it now and say, okay, maybe things are getting a little too out of hand and maybe we need to start putting some guardrails
It's
up.
almost like it was a
before it's too
slippery
late.
slope to begin with, and we should have approached it carefully.
I know, it's the famous
And we didn't.
It's the famous Jurassic Park quote,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Your
Life,
scientists were so concerned if, not in this case, your scientists were so concerned if they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
if they should, yeah. And those were in particular Silicon Valley, because they were a lot of the people that pushed AI development quite a bit. And so
Yeah, the
now
Silicon
we
Valley
have these
bros.
now we have these problems because nobody ever thought to consider them.
Yep.
So what I'm basically saying is there was a lot of irresponsible acts that were going on in a lot of this, and I just don't think Hollywood's going to answer a lot of them. They're going to answer them as best as they can, which is going to be addressing them minorly, but then also making sure that they've got their own back in that mind. So yeah, I'll actually take it over to you guys, because you guys can kind of tell like where I'm at with these, and I can go into it a little bit more later. But Brenton, you're coming brand spanking new to this. So what is your take on the situation with the SAG and WGA strike?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I would love to see this end just out of pure, and I can't even think of the word, so I'll just be more simple. I can't even think of the simple word either. For the love of God,
It's almost like
I'm
strikes are complicated.
They
it's
are.
almost it's almost like I'm just on a 2-year struggle bus right now.
Probably.
Oh God. Anyway, I just want content. I want to.
Mhm.
I'm looking forward to new seasons of shows, and it's making me very sad to know that as things currently stand, a lot of new seasons, a lot of TV that I enjoy is being pushed into 2025, 2026, which in some capacity, because I'm in grad school, is kind of nice because then I'm not really missing anything.
Right.
However, I'm selfish. There's the word. I'm selfish, and I want to see what these incredible writers have written, and I want to see these actors and actresses portray what's happening. Um, and so like I'm selfish in those regards for wanting to strike the end, but on a more realistic note, yes, Adam, I I can sit here and agree that you are right in your thoughts and opinions about Hollywood not really taking any of this seriously. However, I really praise these individuals who are out there advocating for their fellow actors and actresses and writers and producers and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and ensuring that even they too can make a livable wage in the world that we currently live in. And even though per track record, Hollywood may truly not be able to pull themselves out of their own butts to give them what they truly deserve, I praise them because they're out there and they're at least taking the shot.
Right.
And they're at least trying, because the most that we can do in this world is try. A lot of good things have come to those who make a lot of noise. And this is just another moment of noise making that needs to happen. So I wish them the best of luck. I can uh, begrudgingly wait for new TV, new movie. Well, I guess it's primarily TV that's being affected right now.
TV
But
and
the
movies
point
right
is,
now, but video games might be getting affected soon.
the video game part, since we don't have a whole lot of information, I'll
Right.
just say again,
We'll update it as things go along.
I may get a little bit more antsy when it comes to the video games, but the TV and movie I can wait for.
Yes. So I both agree and disagree with what you're saying, Brenton, but I think I've kind of addressed it the way I want to, which is like,
I mean, honestly, I don't see an issue with people just wanting to make a livable wage,
Yeah, for real.
Even individuals that my colleagues that I work with, they all talk about how, yeah, it would be nice to make a livable wage even as a master's degree holding state counselor. I mean, I make pretty, not to toot my own horn, I do make pretty good money. However, if I were to go live on my own, I couldn't survive. Having a dual income with my spouse to be is truly a lifesaver, because
Mhm.
with our combined income, we can make a living. We have a livable wage. If and with and if one of us were to lose our jobs, then
okay,
we're
back, sorry.
we're screwed, essentially.
Yeah.
Is this a conversation I need to add in?
I mean, if you want,
so
when you go back to hear it, if you're like, oh yeah, sure, add it in. Otherwise, I was just talking about, I don't feel that it's wrong to ask for a livable wage. I was telling Alex that, as a state counselor, yeah, I make good money, but if it was just me, myself, and I, absolutely not. I don't make myself do not make a livable wage. With my spouse, we make a livable wage.
Yes. So yeah, I'll probably have that in there too. But getting back to what I was saying, sorry about that. I had kid aggro.
You're good.
I don't have a problem with fight the power and everybody working in solidarity with each other. Here's my issue with strikes, because it is very easy to become the bad guy when you're striking. And the way that you do that is strikes are hard for everybody. everybody involved. And just because somebody has to make a living doesn't mean that they don't support you. And so, in particular, the things that annoy me with this situation is, like I said, there have been situations like where Drew Barrymore, who is trying to, I can't remember the details of it, but I think she was trying to get a series off the ground. It was on
she was trying to relaunch her talk show. That's all.
There you go. So she wanted to be able to do that, and she did it for the good reasons, because she wanted to be able to get her staff back working, because her staff was probably having financial problems. And everybody yelled at her and told her how much she betrayed the cause. And I'm sorry, but she didn't betray Jack. I followed Drew. I know she hasn't betrayed that cause. And that's where the strikes can become the bad guy, is if they immediately treat anybody who's just in a difficult situation, trying to make a living, and you treat them like the bad guy. And unfortunately, this is a lot of modern day politics anyway, because if you just so happen to have this solid position, but you have one disagreement with it, you could get jumped on by the people that you considered, quote, allies in the matter. And that's where we can have those issues. And so when I see stuff like that, I'm not saying it doesn't make me understand your situation, but it also makes it kind of petty. And it also makes it look like if you don't get what you want, you are going to throw temper tantrums to everybody who gets in your way. And that can include the people that you were trying to help in that process. Because eventually, as Brenton was pointing out, state-employed people don't get a whole lot of money, but they got to do the job, right? So at that point, what happens if all of a sudden strike happens and 80% of Brenton's work staff is no longer working there, but he's got to pay the bills. So everybody starts throwing tomatoes at him because he's got to pay the bills. That's bullshit. That's really my major complaint with a lot of the strike is behavior. I understand what they're asking for, and I understand being able to have a living wage and whatnot. And for actors, that's actually a lot harder than a lot of people think it is. And seriously, my hat's off to those who have been able to do it. I was able to do it somewhat, but I was not making a livable wage by any stretch of the imagination for it. So at that point, I understand that aspect of it, but let's treat solidarity like it is. People are going to support you whether they're actively involved in it or not. So hopefully that makes sense, Brenton. Like, I agree with what you're saying. I also just think people can handle this a lot better.
I don't completely follow, but for the sake of time.
Okay. So Alex, your take on this.
I really do agree pretty much with everything Brenton said. And while I see your point, Adam, that yes, other people do need to work, but the problem is if you can't kind of hold the line, so to speak, then it's too easy for the people at the very top to keep getting away with the stuff that they do. So that's why it is kind of important that people do kind of have to come down a little harder on people like Drew Barrymore or Bill Maher who want to, essentially break the picket lines and start working again. Because it's like, well, a lot of other people are suffering just as much. There are, not everybody in Hollywood who lives and works in Hollywood is in a Beverly Hills mansion, right? Not everybody's pulling, the salaries of like Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson, or Bob Iger, right? There's plenty of people who work in the business who live essentially paycheck to paycheck and gig to gig,
right?
And they're happy with that. But that's what the point of the unions is to, of course, ideally ensure that they can keep working, that they can keep having their collective bargaining, that they can keep having their voices heard. And well, when you kind of don't honor that in the middle of a strike, right, and you don't try to work with the guilds directly to maybe get permission to work around the strike, which is doable. Way back in the strike of 2007, 2008, plenty of talk shows still remained going. A little staggered. I remember The Daily Show, Jon Stewart still going every so often. And, so it is doable. It's just, you've got to understand what you're trying to do here. And that's, you've got to determine, is it worth it to really go against the strike for your own show or whatever? I get it. Everybody needs to work, but
Can I pose a question to you?
All right. Yeah.
If Hollywood isn't doing what you want, and let's just say for the sake of argument, another market could possibly exist that is willing to listen to you, could you still technically do what you love to do and what you've done for years and work with them instead? And basically at that point your argument is more that you just don't want to work with Hollywood anymore.
Yeah, and that's definitely the good point. And that's just that's something for them to determine. The individual to determine it's like, at what point can you go away from Hollywood and kind of break out on your own or break into a different industry?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I think everybody's got to look at very carefully. It's not really a question I myself can answer. It's just something that I think is so subjective and determined on an individual's needs and what else is out there for them.
Yep. The reason I bring that up is because you're right. There's a bunch of actors that you're never going to meet their salary. It's just never going to happen. And as far as I'm concerned, I believe the internet calls this fuck you money. Some of these people earn fuck you money. And so at that point, I get it. You want to be able to earn what you're worth. But there's also people that might not be able to meet that. And so at that point, does that mean that you have to go down or they, let me put this better. Your job is to sell yourself. Are you necessarily going down in price if you're going into, I don't know, a separate industry that does something similar to Hollywood and you're taking peanuts in comparison to your original contract? And this is one of the things I've had issues with modern day actors is that some of them get this and others don't, which is just because you take a lower paycheck, yeah, it means you can't really make the mansion payment on it, but it doesn't mean that you're less respected as an actor. And there's a weird stigma that happens there. In fact, in my opinion, you are more respectable because it means that you're just that open to working with so many people. And the reason I bring this up is because this is one of the positives that I've seen come out of this strike. A lot of actors, not the big ones that are attached to Hollywood are going to be attached to Hollywood and SAG-AFTRA and all that. There's maybe a way to save them, but it'd have to come down the line. But a lot of the ones that aren't necessarily able to get a lot of SAG-AFTRA coverage or aren't in enough markets to qualify for SAG-AFTRA have actually been moving into the independent film and TV market. And that is something that I've been following because the way that the independent film and TV market tries to work is actually a lot more amicably than what you currently get with Hollywood. And in fact, actors haven't been doing this that much, but producers and stuntmen and writers, to some extent, have been going to these areas and actually, not by much, but they've been able to earn a little bit more than what they would have earned in the hierarchy of Hollywood. So ultimately, I do see a positive, a light at the end of the tunnel here. I just see it on the end of maybe you ought to just start negotiating with these guys because obviously they want to work with you. In fact, I can't remember which interview it was, but it was for Hayden Christensen joining Ahsoka, where he actually admitted that a lot of his indie film contracts were paying more than Ahsoka did for his appearance. And this is why he's never left independent film. Which I'm happy about. Because that's good on him. Yeah. He's doing what he needs to do.
And it also makes sense. As a bit of a side, I do think that's kind of where Christensen really started and was more the small film, indie film sector.
Well, it's more his preference anyway.
Yeah. And that's good for him. I absolutely admire him for that.
Yeah. Even people like Johnny Depp have gone back to indie films just because a project looks like a creative challenge for them. And in turn, that's, again, like people look at that and go, oh, Johnny Depp, he must be really hurting for money. He's really not. He looked at a project and he wanted to do it, which is ultimately the purpose of wanting to be an actor. Is you want to take on, like, let's just use this as an example. Brinton is going to get his master's degree because he wants to be able to learn to take on harder cases and being able to help more people in a wider spectrum.
I also just want to keep my job.
That too. Money is actually great. Yeah, I'm a greedy bastard. Anyway, but the purpose of an actor is also that you want to be able to find roles that will push you and expand what you can do as an actor, as a voice actor. Some actors expanded into voice acting and found that they actually did a lot better in that market than they did in regular Hollywood and have been totally fine, even though, much like how Brinton and Alex have pointed out, they'd be living paycheck to paycheck, but they're still doing what they love and they're still able to pay the bills. And ultimately, that's really what matters. Is, yes, we need to be able to make a living wage, but we also need to be able to, or we want to be able to enjoy what we do. And if you can find a way to be able to do that and it doesn't affect you, more power to you. One of the examples that I will give on this is Matthew Lillard. I don't know if you guys know this, but ever since he did those Scooby-Doo movies, he's actually been brought on to do many different voice acting roles as Shaggy. Because he got the Shaggy voice down so hard that everybody was like, well, these live action movies really aren't working, but we really want to do this rebooted Scooby-Doo series. That Shaggy voice is really hard to imitate. Let's go get the guy who actually found out how to imitate it. And he's been able to earn a living by being Shaggy. And so
Awesome.
Which is funny because he actually hated trying to learn the Shaggy voice when he got cast as Shaggy, and now it's his bread and butter. Much like how, if a lot of people don't understand this, James Earl Jones didn't really like Darth Vader. Why? Because it wasn't challenging for him anymore. That's what happens with a lot of actors. And so I'm actually happy that some people, these are the people that aren't necessarily that nestled in the hierarchy of Hollywood. They are finding other ways to be able to do it. And also another thing that I've heard is because ultimately you do need to negotiate a contract when you do an indie film as well. They have directors who are amicably meeting a lot of their demands and being able to do so in a budget-effective way that it doesn't hurt the production, it doesn't hurt anybody else on the production, and they can still get their finished product. Which is way better than, well, at this point, what? Hollywood has closed doors, so nobody's listening to anybody. I'm not saying it's a one-size-fit-all, but I do like the fact that people are actually reaching out to another burgeoning industry and trying to support it. And through that, they will grow that industry, and it will start to become a competitor for Hollywood. A viable competitor, especially since they have and I mean this honestly, because a lot of indie filmmakers and indie show writers and whatnot, they've been doing streaming a lot longer than Hollywood has, because the indie platform is really where indie started for some of these people. And they get the ins and outs of it a lot better than mainstream Hollywood does, so they can maximize their benefit out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm happy about that, but you're right. Like, I want people to be able to earn a living wage, and I mean, one other thing that I would like to be able to have happen is, does Bette Midler need to live in a 20-room mansion? Probably not. And so at that point, I get that you want to live in your dream house, but you're getting older. Maybe the dream house is still a little too much. Anyway, these are kind of the things that I'm bringing up, but ultimately, our listeners are asking what a lot of people are, which is, why should we care? And that sounds mean to say, but I want people to listen once again to what Brinton said. He is selfish. He wants entertainment. He wants to be able to, like all of us do, at the end of a long, hard day, be able to this is probably not in Brinton's case, crack open a beer, sit on a couch, and go watch something to get their minds off of what they were doing. Which is not, that's understandable, right? And this comes into why should you care? Well, because of the strike going on as long as it has, we already have a bunch of productions that have now been delayed. And right now, this is only affecting film and television, but as we spoke about earlier, SAG-AFTRA has actually authorized to also start up with the video game industry, which I will have my own complaints about there, but we'll get to them. I can briefly explain them. They're once again trying to state that if you're an actor, that you should be able to. They're basically trying to recreate the Hollywood hierarchy in video games, which is basically if you're a voice actor that also does motion cap roles, you're officially an actor. But if you're a lowly video game voice actor, like, I don't know, Steve Bloom, who just takes jobs as they go along, they are somehow second-class citizens. Would somebody like to explain to me why they are second-class citizens? Oh, wait, Hollywood couldn't even do that.
Voice actors get no respect.
They don't. And frankly, some of the voice actors, the lame second-class citizens, actually are more savvy in the industry than the big guys like Robert Downey Jr., which is also a sad thing to say. But this is already going to be affecting you guys, and in a big way, because now we're going to go into some of these productions that are being impacted. First of all, how many people were fans of Avatar 2? Well, Avatar 3 and 4 are delayed. So post-production has been suspended on Avatar 3, and production is suspended for Avatar 4. How many people were excited about Beetlejuice 2? Production suspended.
Oh, great.
Deadpool 3. Production suspended. Speaking of the MCU, Fantastic Four. The casting process has been paused, which is where they were on it. So they have a script, they know where they're going with it, and now they're not casting anybody. Apparently they were going to do a Karate Kid 2 based off of, I think it's is that the Jaden Smith one, or no, they're rebooting the whole thing. So that also, pre-production has been suspended and its release date has been delayed. So if you're excited about that, too bad for you. Speaking of Disney, the live-action Lilo and Stitch, the live-action Moana, the live-action Lion King sequel, or prequel in this case, based on Mufasa, all suspended. What does suspended mean? Nothing's happening on it.
Yep, they're shuttered.
The whole process has been suspended. And here's the thing that actually, here's where it affects Hollywood. They're still paying. Or at least they're giving the budgets to be able to keep these things going. It's just the crews are refusing to work. Kind of thing. And so this does affect them because they are effectively, in some cases, wasting money. Which is also the point of a strike, is get the big studios to waste enough money that they actually will come to the negotiating table. Alex, you were hoping for a Sonic the Hedgehog 3, right?
Yep.
Well, I have a good bit of news for you. Filming has started, but without the actors. So what that basically means is they're working on like a lot of the visual stuff for Sonic. That's all they can do.
Makes sense.
But I have a feeling that that's extremely delayed because the visual effects artists are also part of this. Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse. So this is the third one, the third Spider-Verse film. Voice recording has been suspended and release date has been delayed indefinitely. Here's one that affects me, Tron Ares. I'm a fan of the Tron films, and I hope that this lives up to them. That has the start of its production has been delayed, which is sad because it took a lot of cajoling with Disney to even get that off the ground. Here's an interesting one. Apparently, there's going to be a live-action How to Train Your Dragon film that was starting production and is now delayed. A bunch of untitled films that were basically going to either be Transformers films, Universal Monster films, the Venom 3, all production suspended. So those are the big movies that are being affected by this. Obviously, if there's anything in there that you guys want to mention, speak now. Oh, here's another one that hurts. How many people like that 2020 Mortal Kombat movie? Apparently a lot of people, because a lot of people didn't like our opinions on it. Well, production suspended.
Wow, I forgot about that.
It's not my fault that Raiden decided to create a Power Rangers command center. All right.
Did I participate? Just as a side note, did I participate in that review?
No, but Shay did, and Shay is the only one that was being given any positive out of it.
That makes sense because I was going.
Reasons.
Well, I was going through my divorce at the time, so I had not yet reconnected with you all. And
was Romney part of that? No, Romney was part of that. So me, Alex, and Romney all got roasted for our opinions on it. That the most that I ever saw of it was we didn't give the film a chance.
I'll have to go.
We all intentionally walked. We all intentionally walked into the film ready to just pan it.
I don't even think it was that negative. It's been a long time. I don't remember much, but I thought it was even that negative. I was probably just kind of mad about it. I think Romney was probably the most down on it.
Yeah, well, here's the way that it went. You were like, it's good. Me and Romney were like, it's okay. But we pointed out the things that were dumb about it, and at least to us. And this is just another moment of where we can all learn a lesson from the Flintstones lampshade. Everybody's a critic.
I didn't mean to derail that, so that's my bad.
Yeah,
it's all right.
So here are the TV series that are being affected. Because Brenton, you brought this up. You're looking forward to a lot of these things. Alex, FX on Hulu was going to be making a season based off of the Alien franchise. Production suspended.
Ah, bummer.
Yeah, Jason and I are upset about that one too. I'm upset about a lot of these. I'm just going to make that baseline. Continue.
Andor Season 2. Production suspended. Let's see. We actually had Season 2 of Interview with a Vampire from AMC. Production has been suspended and has actually been granted a waiver to resume production by SAG-AFTRA. So you got that. The Ironheart Disney Plus series has pretty much been all but canceled because the post-production work was affected by SAG-AFTRA, but it's getting to a point where if they don't get it out by now, either they get it out or they don't. So that's going to be a thing for all the people who watch Black Panther 2 and were excited about Riri Williams. Good on you. Law and Order's still around, guys. Law and Order season 23 production suspended.
Aww.
Came back from the dead. And...
How many seasons do The Simpsons have at this point?
Like 30?
Okay, yeah, okay, so they're higher than Law and Order. All right, the world is right again for me.
Which Law and Order are we talking about?
The original, like the main one.
Yeah, because the original, which did get canceled. In fact, funny enough, the original Writers Guild strike back in 2007 was what killed Law and Order in the first place.
Yes, but then they
dead. Then it came back, and now it's dead again.
Now it's dead again.
The strike has killed it yet again.
So, here's one that's going to affect a lot of people. We've been hearing a lot about that Netflix One Piece. Apparently, it's pretty good to some and not good to others.
Yeah.
Well, for all the people who are excited about it and excited for season 2, production is on hold for the duration of the strike. Speaking of Netflix, how many people liked the first season of Neil Gaiman's The Sandman? Well, sucks to be you. Production suspended. This one affects my wife, as she has now become a fan of the Walking Dead series. The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live, Season 1, production suspended. And it just gets worse and worse because it's not just TV that's being affected, it is also podcasting media, believe it or not. So for those who don't know, the Always Sunny podcast is being affected by this because production is paused. Why is it paused? Because the studios were paying for it. How about Full House Rewind? Yes, this is a podcast based on Full House, where it has, where I can't remember if it's like a radio drama or it's just bringing on actors from it, but yep, being paid by studios, ergo paused.
I never knew this.
Mm-hmm. Some of these podcasts, a lot of people don't realize. How about Fly on the Wall, which is basically made by people who work on Saturday Night Live. And then there are also some possible affected releases that people would want to know. First of all, Dune Part 2, for those who are excited about that. We now have originally they were supposed to come out, it was supposed to come out holiday season this year. It has since been moved to March of 2024. Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire, is now moved to April 2024. It was actually supposed to come out March. The Gran Turismo movie. I do not know why this exists, Sony. This makes about as much sense as making an Uncharted movie. August 11th was this year was actually when it was supposed to happen, but it got delayed to August 25th. How about that new Kraven the Hunter movie? Well, that's delayed too. All the way to August 24. Ouch.
Hasn't Craven been in like development hell for like 40 years?
Yes, and then it released a trailer and it got meh reviews. Because they had to change a lot of Kraven in order to justify this. And even I looked at the trailer and went, yeah, they've changed him way too much. He's not even Kraven anymore. He's basically Superman meets Kraven. Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim. This was for, it was originally set for Netflix, but now is going to be going over to Max. That's been delayed from April 2024 to December 24. So that's going to affect a few people. Also, the untitled Ghostbusters Afterlife sequel, which was supposed to come out this holiday season, is now delayed to the end of March in 24. Now that sucks, considering that you and I just barely watched Afterlife and loved the fuck out of it.
I didn't even know they were making a sequel, so
Yes.
Now that I know that there's a sequel.
This is actually one of the things I remember from when it came out, is that a sequel was approved pretty much within the first month. Because Afterlife did really, really well, and apparently that irritated a lot of the production staff that worked on 2016. So yeah, have fun with that. But yeah, these are a lot of the things that are going to be affected, and ultimately, who does a strike hurt the most? Well, in this case, the viewers. Because now, I mean, hopefully they will be able to get some kind of solution fairly soon, but considering that we just barely said they're going to be expanding into the video game industry, I don't see an ending anytime soon. What about you guys?
Well, we'll see, because they've been having new negotiations lately, so we'll see how it goes over the next few weeks to a few months here.
Here's hoping. And that's pretty much all that we've got on this one. So final thoughts on it before we move on to something else. Obviously, I'm torn in my viewpoints on the matter. I do understand what the strike people are trying to do. However, I still am of the opinion that Hollywood is probably not the way to do it, just because Hollywood will look for... There's just so much scum in Hollywood that unfortunately you're going to get screwed either way if you try to work with Hollywood. So it's probably better to either join the new industry or hedge your bets. And that's ultimately what I would say on the matter. But let's not treat people like they don't support you. Because frankly, they do. They just also need to be able to feed the kids. And that is something I understand more than anything else. Alex, what about you?
Yeah, it's a big mess overall, but we'll have to wait and see. It's just going to be a long, arduous process.
Right.
So far, we'll see. So far, I think the longest writer strike in history is still the 88-89 strike. So we'll see if this one surpasses it.
Yep. Okay, Brinton, your final thoughts on the WGA SAG-AFTRA strike?
I don't think I have any.
Well, here's the thought that we have. Please don't let this affect video games.
Well,
Because
yes.
because obviously there are games we're excited for. But with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to other things that happened during these 2 months. And I'm actually going to skip over a story for just a second because I do know a lot of people that were interested in our take on this. But people might not know this. If you don't, you live under a rock. Charles Martinet used to be the voice actor for Mario. Unfortunately, he is no longer, because he has officially stepped down from the role, which to some is very sad because Charles Martinet is one of those few occasions of a voice actor or an actor that just loves their job so much they are just enthusiastic about it wherever they go. And so this was a big, sad thing for everybody to hear because Charles was beloved as the voice actor for Mario. And so before we get into the other part of this, what was you guys' take when you heard that Charles Martinet had officially stepped down?
I was surprised. I mean, it's true. He's so associated with Mario, right? He's and Mario, but mostly with everybody just knows him as Mario, and it's like he's so iconic to the role. He's pretty much for as long as Mario has had a voice, it has been Charles.
Well, and on top of that, the funniest thing is he wasn't hired by Nintendo originally. It was just that when he did some of the weird PC games that came out, I believe it was Miyamoto that had heard him and said, "Yeah, this is the guy. This is the guy that has to be it." And he enjoyed his working relationship with Charles ever since. And Charles is one of those few actors that just, like I said, brings an enthusiasm to the role that is felt. And many Mario fans appreciated that. But you're right. You know, we couldn't expect him to be Mario forever. I mean, how old is he? I'm actually so yeah, he's 68. So he had to give up the role eventually. Oh yeah, dude, he's actually one of the older actors. And the funniest thing is he's actually gotten other work aside from Mario, but it's all been overshadowed. So that's the thing. And here's the thing, it's not an overall retirement. I think he's also said that he is interested in other roles if they come his way. He's just looking to officially step away from Mario. It's been many, many years. Brinton, your thoughts on the retirement of Charles Martinet?
You know, it induces a lot of like somber feelings just because it just means that I'm also getting older, which is just a really weird, it's just a really weird feeling, especially since I've reconnected with my inner child. So realizing that a lot, good things are coming to an end in the sense of like Mario's voice actor is really, really sad. And it kind of, in a sense, solidifies some just like outstanding rumors about the direction Nintendo is taking their company and what their focuses are starting to become. So it's just kind of like it just it leaves you feeling a little bit empty and not sure exactly what to expect or what's coming next.
Yes, and I also should point out when this happened, a lot of people immediately assumed, oh, well, Chris Pratt's going to be the new Mario. And that's not the case. I think they'll bring him in for Mario movies, but I do think that there are enough sound-alikes out there that are younger that could probably step in to it. So that's probably the direction that they will go. But a lot of people are like, don't do it, because Chris Pratt will be the voice from here on in. I don't think that's going to happen, people, so don't worry about it. But now we can talk about the positive end of this, because literally 2 to 3 weeks later, Charles Martinet showed up on a Nintendo Direct. We thought he was retired. Turns out, Nintendo offered him a job. And this is an amazing job, as far as I'm concerned, because Charles Martinet is going to become the first ever Nintendo Mario ambassador. What does this ultimately mean? Not a whole lot. What it basically means is that when Charles Martinet gets to do performances, specifically in regards to Mario, Nintendo might foot the bill on getting him there. And also might be able to provide some other things going on at that particular panel. So at that point, it doesn't really add, and also he'll get regular pay for those provided by Nintendo, because he will be a goodwill ambassador spreading the love of Nintendo. And actually, considering his enthusiasm, this is a good job for him. You guys' thoughts, did you guys just not know about that, or did you guys see the announcement?
I saw the announcement.
So did I. Yeah, I knew about this.
So what did you guys think of Nintendo handing him this ambassador role?
Shows you that they really still value him and the long contribution he's given for the franchise.
Yeah.
So I think it's great that they will still keep him on in some capacity or another for as long as he desires.
Mm-hmm. And even people internally in Nintendo have said, we've always wanted to have this stable voice actors that we can just rely on, kind of like how Disney has a stable that when we are looking to do a Metroid game, we have a solid person to go to for Samus. And Charles has just been one of those that has worked out. He's never wanted to leave the role. Brinton, what about you?
Nintendo has a lot of money.
Well, according to a story that we're going to be talking about next podcast, apparently they don't, because Uncle Phil wanted to buy him.
Well,
we'll get there when we get there.
It
I
is
have lots of things to say about that.
I don't think Nintendo's hurting for money.
Nope.
If they can literally carve a position that only he will have.
What guy has so far?
I mean, the day that this man dies, it's not the position of Mario ambassador is now available. No, the position will die with him.
I think it won't be called the Nintendo Mario ambassador for forever. It'll just be called Nintendo ambassador. Which to me is fine.
Which is fine. However, it's not going to be exactly whatever it is that he's going to be specifically doing. So It is a position carved out for him.
Right.
They have money where they can do that, which is great.
And also, I'm sure he'll come back in the movies to play Giuseppe again, because everybody loved the Giuseppe plug.
So those are my thoughts.
Okay.
I mean, I'm glad he's going to be around to help to help make sure that the next Mario voice actor is able to carry the giant torch that he has created there's going to be a giant wake that he is going to be trailing behind. So luckily,
and who knows? Maybe he worked out the same deal with Nintendo that James Earl Jones did with Disney, where they've got a voice print of him and he can just do Mario games forever. We don't know. They won't tell us. So at that point, I mean, it could happen, but I have a feeling that they'll find a Mario sound-alike that will they'll take over for him that's younger. And I think Charles would give them their blessing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it is kind of funny that has sparked a whole new discussion that I want to bring to you guys. You're right, the ambassador program is one guy. Should it be expanded upon? Because I've seen tons of people basically saying that the next person that goes into the ambassador program is the woman who plays Zelda in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, because they believe she should be Zelda for the next decade, or for at least the next 7 games.
The next 7 games?
Wow.
What I mean is they want her playing Zelda a really long time.
I mean, sure, that's fine. She's a great voice actress.
I'm okay with it.
I feel like we got way more personality out of Zelda ever since they switched over to a voice acting I just lost a word again.
In fact, I'll expand on it. If you want to give Matt Mercer an ambassador program for Ganondorf, I would have no problem with that, because I haven't finished Breath of the or Tears of the Kingdom, but the scenes that I have seen of him, he's nailed it. He's got Ganondorf down.
Yeah, he's great. I
So
agree.
at that point, if you want to bring him back as Ganondorf, I don't have any problem with that. Another one that I would actually like them to consider is the voice actors who played Samus in what was the one that just barely came out? I'm not thinking of it. Metro Dread.
You're thinking
Dread.
Oh.
So she doesn't have a whole lot of voice roles, but the voice roles that she did where she was speaking in Chozo actually sounded really right. It sounded like this is how Samus should be. And so at that point, I'd say, like, at least for the next Metroid game, if she's not cast in Metroid Prime 4, they are missing out. This is an ideal Samus cast. That's another one. I also should say this. The guy who does the announcing for Smash, he needs to be in the ambassador program. That guy will forever be the Smash announcer. We know that Smash is being worked on internally, even though Sakurai's not part of it. But they'll bring him back to announce the fights and everything like that. So please do it. Please do it. He's a great guy from what I hear. So there you go. But so you both are in agreement. If they want to, they should do an ambassador program for actors that want to represent Nintendo.
Hell yeah.
Sure.
Oh, and all the people who are screaming for Helena Taylor to retroactively be included into the Nintendo ambassador program.
Well, I don't get it.
Nope, she burned that bridge.
Oh, right. I forgot the name. Okay.
Yep, Helena Taylor, Bayonetta.
Yeah.
Okay,
if
anything,
right.
because I think that now the new direction that they might be going with Bayonetta, they'll have another actress playing her pretty soon, because I think it's going to be Kid Bayonetta from here on in. So there you go. So that's cool news for Charles Martinet, and I think it's actually a good thing for Nintendo. And I actually wouldn't be surprised if Shigeru pulled a lot of strings to get that for Charles, because I know for a fact Charles and Shigeru loves Charles quite a bit. And I think we actually have Charles Martinet to thank for the fact that Shigeru Miyamoto actually knows a little bit more English than he used to, so that he could properly express his thanks. So now we can get to the one thing that you guys have probably been wanting to talk about. I know a couple of people have brought this up to me, because for some reason, even though some people get mad at me of talking about rumors, you guys still bring rumors to me. So we're going to talk about the unique one in the room right now. So Nintendo has been fairly busy over this past year, and they've been very secretive. And a lot of people have been assuming that this is because they are working on the successor to the Nintendo Switch. Obviously, because we have the PS5 and the Xbox Series XS. Too many crystals, they need another name. And so at that point, a lot of people are asking, okay, when Switch 2? And it turns out that a big leak, I need to put that in quotations here, leak, because none of this I have been able to confirm. But supposedly Nintendo was at Gamescom, and supposedly also might have had something over at Tokyo Game Show, and they basically masked that by only having one business rep at Tokyo Game Show. But here's the gist of it. You guys tell me whether or not you think it's accurate. There was apparently a secret Nintendo booth that nobody was told about unless they wanted you to come in. And there was where they showcased the dev kit for the Switch 2. So first of all, do we think that happened?
Potentially. I think it's certainly possible, but
I definitely think it's possible. I don't think it would have happened at E3 this year. I can guarantee that.
Well, there was no E3 this year.
Yeah, but what I'm also saying is, like, over the past few years before the pandemic, Nintendo had been slowly burning their bridge with E3. and had been as hands-off as they possibly could and only ever did just their directs. So it wouldn't have been at E3 if that happened. But Gamescom, which I believe still takes place in Europe, that they might not have had an issue to do with that. But Tokyo Game Show also seems very likely because it's Japan and it's right in their neck of the woods.
Mm-hmm.
But Brinton, do you think the secret Nintendo booth was at Gamescom?
Sure, why not?
All right. Well, that's good because now I can expand into this. So, the Switch 2. What do we think it is? We obviously don't know. We have to rely on a lot of hearsay at this point, but we have a couple of solid features that are being bounced around the industry as well as gaming media overall as being solids for the Nintendo Switch 2. And so we're going to go over those, and then if there's anything that wasn't listed, I'm obviously going to ask you guys what you think should be there. First of all, the Switch 2 will be capable of 4K and also basically be able to play games equivalent in quality to that of the PS4 and or PS5 and the current generation. It varies with whom you talk to. Some people just say it's going to be a generation back. Others are saying, no, they'll finally get caught up. So where are you guys at? Does it need to have 4K?
I think it should, but I kind of don't think it will.
In what mode? Are we talking like 4K in a handheld or 4K
I'm glad
on the
you brought that
television?
up, but let's assume that it's just on TVs.
I have a PS5. I don't need it from Nintendo. Like, I really am okay without it.
Okay.
I would say
But let's just say
what's
the Switch 2 is like a Switch, but it is capable of 4K.
Cool.
Awesome. Okay. So not really here nor there about that.
I mean, what is the next like step down from 4K? Is it 1080p?
Well, 1080p would already be what the Switch was capable of. So
okay, well, I guess my question
the way to answer your question, Brinton, is that okay, so Gen 7 is known for 1080p. Then the next generation took over 4K. And supposedly this new generation, the PS5 and whatnot, are supposed to take advantage of 8K, or I've also heard 16K is supposed to be their target. So if it is 4K, it would be a generation back.
Well, I guess my question would be, does Nintendo feel they need to do that? Because I feel like Nintendo is able to stand on their own and necessarily doesn't need to participate in the console war unless they're feeling some sort of pressure to do so.
I would tend to agree with that. So the 4K, that sounds like something everybody can get behind. In terms of if it has a handheld mode, which a lot of people are assuming it does, its screen would only be a couple of inches bigger than the current Switch, but it would be capable of 4K, and the onboard hard drive for it would be a whopping, hold your breath, Alex, hold your breath, a whopping 512 gigabytes of onboard storage.
Oh, come on, Nintendo.
Yeah, that's like, if they want to join the console war, they're gonna have to do better than that.
Granted, that's a lot better than 32. A lot better. But
fair,
considering that modern consoles are capable of upwards of 2 terabytes, that's a really big step back.
Considering most games these days are pretty much a terabyte at least.
Well, yeah, and I'm already telling you, Nintendo, if you want to have all the big titles like, say, GTA 6, 512 ain't gonna cut it. Now, one way you could fix this that a lot of people have brought up, that I'll bring to you guys, is, yes, the handheld mode has its onboard hard drive. But then the dock can have a bigger hard drive where the bigger games can go. that would be a good solution to me, at least, because pretty much for the people who are going to be playing Red Dead 2 or Elder Scrolls on it, they're playing on a TV anyway. So, yeah, not a big deal. But I will say, if you're going to do this, you could also up the screen size by a couple. I mean, the Steam Deck is already bigger, so you could do a little bit more. But to me, the onboard storage is a big thing. Like 512 gigabytes is still just way too small for Nintendo, as far as I'm concerned. They could definitely do a lot better than that. The other thing that they also want to be able to do is they also want to be able to get this thing out in the second half of 2024.
Potential, but then you think they would have started doing some more.
Let me clarify really quick what I just said. Not second quarter, second half. So we're talking quarter 3 and quarter 4, people, not summer. So we're talking fall or winter of 2024, which I've always considered that if they're going to do Switch 2, it would need to be in the holiday season, because that would be the right time to capitalize on that for them. So I do agree that that's probably what they need to aim for. My problem is I don't know about 2024. I do know when the Switch launched, it was a very small window between the announcement to more details on the console and then to the actual release. They could be trying to mirror that, but I'm still optimistically saying I think 2025 is going to be when we see the Switch 2.
Yeah, potentially.
What do you guys think? Do you guys think because a lot of people are saying they need to get it out by 2024. They need to do it. Do they need to?
I don't think they need to. Why would they?
No.
I don't think we have anything definitive coming out 2024 by Sony or Microsoft. So,
in terms of hardware?
Yeah, in terms of hardware, what else is really coming out in 2024? Nothing really is going to be out there that they have to contend with. So,
well, and a lot of people that are advocating for a 2024 release are assuming, in my opinion, that Nintendo is still part of the quote console war. And I'd argue Nintendo hasn't been part of it and has not cared about it for quite a while now. They are doing their own thing, and they don't really care if they're a generation behind graphically. To them, what matters is the tech. Like, they want to be able to innovate. So that's what matters to them. And so at that point, I'd argue, if that's their mindset going into the Switch, that's probably also their mindset going into the Switch 2.
Can I just make a quick comment?
Sure. Yeah.
I love how, as a community, we keep calling it the Switch 2 when we all know Nintendo is not going to call it the Switch 2.
I'm not actually, for the record, I was actually going to clarify this. I'm not calling it the Switch 2. I'm calling it the Switch U.
Switch U. I don't think they're going to make that mistake again.
No, they probably won't. But
they'll probably call it like new Nintendo Switch, like something of that effect.
Yeah.
Or my forever favorite from 2016-17, the Nintendo Shuttle.
Nintendo Shuttle.
Speaking of, the schematics have clearly stated it will not look like a space shuttle. Sorry.
Well,
no. The funny thing is, I think it was Romney who actually made the crack that it'll be.
No,
a space
you both did.
But I'm pretty sure Romney threw it out there first. I don't know. I'm sure I was making some
Romney
jokes.
Romney threw it out, and you indulged it, and then it became a thing.
All I remember from the conversation was freaking Aldo and you, Adam, arguing over the cartridges, and I was like, really? Is this what we're gonna have an argument about?
Dude, Nintendo fans have arguments about the dumbest things, but I mean, here's the thing. Ultimately, Aldo and I agreed they needed more storage space. That didn't happen. So, also, I should point out the other thing that people are guessing is that this will also not have an LCD display. It will be an OLED display because the Switch OLED. It might be. I think it'll be slightly better than that, but that's me. But yeah, so the other things that this affects is the game releases. In case you guys have not heard, there will be no DLC for Tears of the Kingdom. And frankly, correct me if I'm wrong from the two of you, because you both have beaten it. I don't think it needs it.
Not really. There's so much to do already.
I think
Yeah.
I think if they were going to add anything, it'd be like even harder modes. But there's so much stuff put in here. I don't see them expanding the story or anything like that, and I also don't see like any new features being necessary for it. So the speculation because of that is the next Zelda game will be on Switch 2. I think we can all be in agreement. Yeah, that's probably the case.
Yeah, I'd say that's definitely going to be the case.
Yes. Originally, people were saying that the next Mario would be there, but we now have Super Mario Bros. Wonder, so that's been amended to the next 3D Mario game. So the next Super Mario Odyssey will be moved to the Switch 2. I tend to agree with this because Wonder is once again going off in the new Super Mario direction, and it does make sense for them to start working on a flagship title for it, and that would be Mario. Right,
Yeah.
wrong? You guys' thoughts?
No, I think you're absolutely right, considering we haven't really had a sort of flagship Mario game since
Right.
Odyssey. It just seems like if we're not going to get one by now and we're already on the verge at the cusp of a potential successor to the Switch, it just makes sense that it's either going to be exclusive to the new console or we'll get another Breath of the Wild where it's a split generation thing.
Yep. Brenton, is this the case?
I mean, I'm just gonna buy this new Switch anyway, so
Yeah. I think honestly, if they were going to do that, they would probably, because they've already launched with Breath of the Wild, and a lot of people kind of noticed this. But when they did the Wii, they launched with Twilight Princess, right? And then the Wii
Yeah.
U, they launched with New Super Mario Bros. U. So a lot of people have been guessing that Nintendo internally has been alternating between Zelda and Mario as release titles, and it would make sense.
That's coincidental. I don't think it's
It's
that
absolutely coincidental, but if I were a betting man, I would say those two are still what Nintendo considers its flagship. So at that point, either one of them would be a launch title.
The only reason why Mario would be a launch title for this new console is because we had a major Zelda release already.
Right.
So it's not like they're gonna pump out another major
And people
main
forget
title
Breath
Zelda
of the
game.
Wild, 6 months later, Mario Odyssey. Was it 6 months later or was it a year later?
It was within a year of the release of
Yeah.
the Switch.
Yeah, so at that point, yeah. I'm not saying that this is going to be their order from here on in, but it would make sense that either of those two would be a launch title, as far as I'm concerned. And if it was going to be Mario, it would probably have to be one of the collectathon type Mario games, not like a new Super Mario Brothers game. Because new Super Mario Brothers U, it did well for the Wii U, but we're talking the Wii U here, which wasn't great. We didn't see good sales of the Wii U until Smash 4, I want to say. So, no, actually, Wind Waker HD, because that came out before that. So there you go. The other big one that hurts me, kind of, is Metroid. Metroid Prime 4 supposedly has completely bypassed the Switch and is now on the Switch too. So Metroid fans, once again, are kind of screwed because Metroid Prime 4 has been teased for the Switch for a long time. But considering the fact that they had to literally start from scratch again, it would not surprise me if, given their development time, they started getting Switch 2 development kits. So it would not surprise me if they have moved Metroid Prime 4 to the Switch 2. Do I think that's a good thing for the Metroid franchise? Yes and no. Dread has been able to keep the Metroid franchise afloat, so I'm happy about that. But I do still think that it would be a good idea to have Prime 4 coming out on the Switch for the 10 people that aren't going to buy that Switch 2. That's me. New Pokemon, new gen will be delayed to the Switch 2. Brinton, thoughts?
Well, I'm buying the new Switch, so that's fine.
Yeah.
I
Well, we just
actually
added.
I actually disagree with this one, considering the time frame between Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet. It sounds to me like like Game Freak is looking to have consistent development cycles. I think you might get it before the Switch 2. But that's me. It just depends on whether or not the Switch 2 comes out in 2025 or 2024.
Good point.
I'm gonna actually say it's more likely that they are gonna push it off to the next gen.
It wouldn't
We've already
surprise
heard.
me. Yeah.
We have heard that the Pokemon companies wanting to kind of reevaluate some things and maybe slow things down a bit. And again, I know Brinton was mentioning this earlier that Scarlet and Violet they are a little rough around the edges, but they're at least still good and playable. But they are rough around the edges.
Right.
It's clear that they are trying something new, trying to go in this open world direction. So I say hopefully they will take a little more time to refine the idea and the formula laid out by Scarlet and Violet.
All right.
For Generation 10, and that is weird to say,
Okay.
because at some point Pokemon's going to have to come to an end. They've already fully admitted that it's getting harder and harder to make new Pokemon.
Mm-hmm. And also
but-
internally, I think they've also said they do not want to pass like 2,000 Pokemon.
Well, they're gonna. I say just wrap it off with Generation 10, and then afterwards just make a bunch of spin-off games similar to Arceus, and just do world building in those regards.
That's kind of my thought too. Otherwise, the other thing that you could do, which a lot of people don't like when I say this because MMOs are horribly overdone, but I think you could justify an MMO at that point for Pokemon basically being Pokemon World. Would it be like the gens? Probably not. It would probably be more like Arceus.
100% for it.
Yeah. So, I mean,
100%.
at that point, that's what you could do, and then they could do nothing but world building at that point. I've actually made the argument that like next gens, if the Scarlet and Violet DLC works out, then maybe what they need to consider doing is actually doing story expansions into the old continents. So then at that point, it's a justifiable expansion of the Pokedex because you're going to Hoenn. So at that point, you know that you're going to be able to catch Hoenn Pokemon there. So that's one thing that I've actually wanted people to consider on that. The other big franchise is Super Smash Brothers. So here's the thing. We know that internally a Smash Bros. Sequel is being worked on. We also know that it's being approached with a lot of scrutiny by internal people at Nintendo. Because, well, Sakurai had the magic. And unfortunately, Sakurai is off working on new projects with Bamco Nandai. And so at that point, I don't think he's going to come back and do a new Smash Bros. I think Ultimate was his swan song to that series. But we do know one is happening. Excited, not excited.
I guess we'll have to wait and see.
I want to see what they come up with, honestly. I'm in the wait and see approach because Smash Ultimate was just everything that everybody wanted it to be. And frankly, if you ported Smash Ultimate to the Switch 2, people would buy it. They just love that game so much.
As much as I love fighting games, I think I would tap out.
You would tap out? All right.
Yeah,
I get it. You want to go to that Nickelodeon fighter now.
No, it's I
get
think
it,
I'm
man.
just
They announced Arnold's grandma as a character, so.
No, I think I'm just tapping out of fighting games. I still really, really appreciate them, and they hold a special place in my heart. However, just because of wow, let me try that for a third time. Oh my god, help me. The type of games that I play at home now are typically going to be more for family members who don't really play video games all that often. And I already annihilate my fiance and stepdaughter in Mario Kart, so I don't really want to add another game where they're not going to have fun playing with me.
Right.
Because I'm going to annihilate them in Smash Brothers.
You could hold back.
That's what I don't want to.
That was worth it. So yeah,
I'm willing to be honest with my feelings. Plus, I'd rather, like, at this point in my life, I've just been way more into playing open world games, single player games, Mario Kart, Mario Party. So like I'm getting to a point in my life now, strange enough to say because I'm only 32, where I've started to become more selective on games. And in the past, I would very much be, oh, I have to get this, I have to get this, I have to get this. And now I'm starting to be more, do I really actually want to play this? Do I want to spend the money on something that is going to collect dust and never be touched?
And especially considering the economy of fighting games right now, it's pretty expensive to be able to stay up to speed with everything. I mean, if you take Smash Ultimate into account, you had to pay for 3 different Smash passes. So that's already a big commitment, and I kind of understand your point of view here. Like, you want to be able to have more open games to everybody, and I think if Smash became part of that equation, I don't think you'd say no to it. But really, what you're looking to bring is more Mario, Zelda games, other stuff that other people can watch and enjoy. Am I wrong about that?
No, I don't think so.
Apparently not.
No, I don't think so either.
Okay.
Sorry, I was pausing for dramatic effect.
All right, there you go. Okay. So yeah, that and the funniest thing is, like, I could totally understand that perspective. For me, I'm still in fighting games, but that's because where you want to be like more open-ended, I use fighting games as more of a personal improvement thing now. I'm not necessarily looking to play fighting games when family and friends come over unless they want to. Mostly I do it as something at the end of the day for self-improvement. And I am perfectly fine with that.
I mean, I'll play, like, if I was over at your place, dude, and you're like, do you want to play this? I wouldn't say no. I'm just not going to buy it myself anymore.
Exactly. And it's not like, and that's the thing. Like, if you were here, I'd have no problem digging it out and we can have some fun with it. But am I going out of my way to show like a rando in like coworker? No. I'm keeping those fighting games kind of to myself. And here's the other thing too. I like Smash. Not a big fan of Smash, like in particular the platform fighter kind of genre. I tend to like the more classic fighting games. And so games like Street Fighter V, because I'm not playing 6 right now, or Dragon Ball Fighters, that's kind of the way to go for me. So that's where I tend to stay. But you actually brought up another one, Mario Kart 9. Do we think that's moved over to the Switch 2 at this point? I think it is, because they keep on adding DLC to 8.
I mean, it has to be at this point. I just don't see Mario Kart 9 even happening remotely anytime soon. And there's been so many rumors and leaks about what it could potentially be that anytime Mario Kart gets brought up, I'm like, wow, they're really milking 8. Like, I think Mario Kart 8 came out in 2014.
Well, the 8 Deluxe, no, or you might have the original 8, yeah. And then it was 2018 when 8 Deluxe came out, and 8 Deluxe just shattered all of their online infrastructure. I think to this day it is still the most popular played Nintendo game on Nintendo Online.
I mean, dude, we're approaching like a solid decade of Mario Kart 8.
Yeah.
It has done
They do need to but I would totally understand if they move it to the Switch too, because that would sell consoles. So, because people love the infrastructure for Mario Kart 8, so they would basically expect that. Plus, then maybe we could have courses that aren't based on Mario Kart Mobile. Did I say that out loud? Yeah, I did.
Mhm.
So those are the primary speculations that come into effect for the Switch 2. Ultimately, what I think is going to happen is, again, I mentioned that Nintendo event. If they were going to mimic the Switch's release with the Switch 2, if people remember, it was around October when the Switch was announced. So we have a month, and I believe they've said either October or November is when the next Nintendo Direct is going to happen. I could totally see, on top of acknowledging some delays or whatnot, this is going to be when they reveal the Switch 2, if it is coming out in 24. If it's not, then it would be the next year. Which sound right to you guys, or do you think they'll do something different this time?
They might do something different. I could even see them maybe not even announcing this till early next year, because we still don't have a solid confirmation that this is truly going to launch sometime late next year. It's like you said, we could maybe see this 2025.
Yeah, it could easily be either year. It just depends, because unfortunately they keep very quiet on the console development. So, and for good reason. They want to be able to wow us with whatever innovation that they add here. So I think either year is plausible. Brinton, final thoughts on this?
Time will tell what will potentially happen.
Either way, we'll all be excited, and you can all expect a Nintendo talk very soon after that happens. So with that being said, unfortunately, we've actually run out of time, and I have actually made a promise to my wife that I actually have to fulfill tonight. So we did have a discussion, but we can easily move that over to the next month if you guys are okay with that.
Sure.
Because it's going to be once again addressing video game prices, and in this particular one, it's going to be addressing video game remasters. So we will probably move that over to the September podcast, which will be coming out very soon. I promise we are not going to be skipping months again, because September actually had news. Holy crap, it had news. So
there was some spicy stuff that dropped in the last 22 days.
Spicy stuff, a Nintendo Direct, a PlayStation State of Play. We have tons of stuff to talk about. Yeah. So we'll be good on that one. But if people want to be able to reach out to us to give their opinions and thoughts on, say, like the Switch 2 or whatnot, Brinton Volley, how do they do that with you? Besides coming to me.
Don't. I'm writing a paper.
Okay, cool. So basically, he is not on the Twitterman X anymore. And that's officially what I'm calling it now, by the way. It's Twitterman X.
Twitterman X.
Twitterman X, I like it.
I'm going to go with it. Now, if you want to reach out to me on the Twitterman X, you can, go for it. I just may not respond immediately. You know what? Somebody did actually, reach out to me, but I was creeped out. But that was more my anxiety.
Well, that's what you guys do. Obviously, he didn't come to me as the answering service first. Then he would have been more comfortable.
Well, it caught me off guard, and then all communication skills that I have just flew right out the window. I need to respond to this person, but anyway, I'm just talking out loud. Bye,
right. Alex. How do people get a hold of you?
I'm on YouTube, of course. Shadow Blazer 3000 is my anime-related channel, so you can see all my content there.
All right. And obviously, you guys are on my channel when you are listening to this. Welcome. Please consider giving a like and subscribe on the YouTubes, because it definitely does help, especially with some of the other content that is coming out. And you guys can check out some of that as well, including our coverage of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Battle City Duels, which we are almost done with the preliminary rounds, and we can move to what everybody wants, the finals. So you guys can look forward to that very soon, or you can check out some of the other reviews that are coming out of me and Alex's trip to St. George, because we also have the Super Mario Brothers movie. You guys can see what me and Andrea thought of that, or you guys can listen to what me and Alex thought about Ghostbusters Afterlife. That sounds like fun. So you guys can check that out when this comes out, hopefully. And if you guys also want to be able to support on other podcasting platforms, you can do so at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Player.fm, and of course, Spotify. So you can support there, leave a review, all that fun stuff. We definitely appreciate all of that. And we will see you guys next time for the September edition of the Geek News Reviews and Opinions podcast. Until then, have a good day or night when you're listening to this. We'll talk to you again soon.